What's up, everybody? This is David Greenspan, and you are listening to the MindShare podcast, a proud member of the Industry Syndicate Media Network. Additional podcasts are available at industrysyndicate.com and mindshare101.com. This week's episode is sponsored by Kits Keep in Touch Systems. This is the Big 5-0. This is episode 50. So he's a 17-year-old landlord who purchased his first investment property at the age of 15. He currently owns 3 investment properties, 2 of which are rentals, and 1 full-time Airbnb, and hopes to achieve his goal of acquiring 100 units by the age of 30. Starting at the early age of 9 with $500 in his pocket, he was inspired by his grandfather to grow his savings, so he bought and sold items on Kijiji and Facebook. He saved his earnings for 6 years until he had enough for a down payment on an investment property. He was a finalist in the World Championships for public speaking and graduated high school early at the age of 16. He has been featured on CBC News, Global News Toronto, CFPL 980 radio station, 30 Minutes to Wealth Season 2, and a Kijiji Canada commercial. He says that risk is the down payment on success. It's not about starting tomorrow. It's about starting today. Excited to have this guy on the show with me today. Tyson George, welcome to the MindShare podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Buddy, it's a pleasure to have you, man. I'm glad you can make it on today. Thank you, seriously. Listen, typically on this show, I like to focus on how to help our listeners build a lot more mindshare. And I told you about this. I told you about this when we met in Niagara. I told you about this today. But we do this by bringing on guests who are not only talking, but actually walking the walk. This be successful teams, individual agents, coaches, trainers, folks like yourself, people who are going to bring value to this show. Now, in today's episode, we're definitely going to deliver the value. This time, though, this is going to be about how you can build more value for yourself. So to all of my listeners, we're not necessarily just talking about mindshare today. This is going to come from 2 sides. On one end, I want you to pick up the tricks to investing, what it takes, how you can up your game. On the other side, I want this to be purely and simply motivation for all of you to get off your asses and do something if you haven't already, okay? I met Tyson a few weeks back, like I just mentioned, an event we were both speaking at, and when I read his bio, to see what he has accomplished so far, and at such a young age, how can anybody here, any of you listening, any of you watching, any of you that I speak to, never mind me, like, how can anybody give me, never mind me, but give yourself any excuses of why you can't or why you haven't? Like he says, what's stopping you? Now, by the end of this one, I hope you all look in the mirror and confidently tell yourselves that nothing and nothing can stop you. So Tyson, all that being said, I do appreciate you being here today, but I have to ask, and I know I brought this up before, but I think everybody's probably wondering, shouldn't you be in school today?
Good point. Yeah. So I finished high school a year early last year. So all my friends are still in school right now, but thankfully I'm not.
So how does that work that you finish a year early? And I think it goes without saying, I think some of us can probably answer that right off the hop. You're probably doing some great stuff out there. But what's the deal there? So you finished early. Why did you do that? Or was this just, hey, I wanted to get out of school? Or was this one of those like, now, I'm asking you about all this stuff, and it's not like I was spending a lot of time in class at 17 either, but maybe for different reasons.
Yeah.
So, but you're not there. What was that whole thing? You fast tracked there. What was the decision to do that? And what are you doing now then?
So yeah, before it was, I just love doing summer school. And, because I get to see new kids from all around the city and get to meet new people. And so I love doing summer school. And I had gotten ahead, and I got this job opportunity when I was 15 to work with a company going around Canada teaching adults and youth how to manage and invest money. And this was a month after I bought my first investment property. And so what they wanted me to do was to finish high school as early as I could, so that way I could get running and going with them. And so that's kind of what happened. And because I was already ahead on credits, it was pretty easy to keep going. But what I did pretty much is it was 3 years of summer school and 3 dual credits, which is like taking a course at a college, but you get a high school credit for it.
Ah, so you were fast tracking specifically because of this job, but then it wasn't that, I mean, you did do the summer school thing. So you packed a
Yeah,
lot more education in a shorter period of time.
correct. Yeah.
See, I did it the opposite, man. I stayed in school longer. I stayed, not by choice. I turned a 3-year program into a 4-year program instead of 3 years to 2 years. But anyways, whatever. But so you were doing this job with this company, and you guys
Mhm.
were going around and teaching youth. How old were some of these kids that you guys were talking to?
So primarily I'm career colleges. So anywhere from mainly the East Coast to Southwestern Ontario. And we're even started getting into some of the high schools, such as like Niagara region, and even working out deals with the School Board of London, having meetings with Doug Ford, different things like that, trying to put out financial literacy to get it to all youth and Canadians.
Got it. And it was this, I mean, when you were doing your education, was this something where it was like you were a math whiz, or you were taking, separate courses for investing or any of that stuff?
No, not really. It was more teaching what I know. So for example, because I'm big on real estate and I've learned so much on real estate, it's pretty easy for me to be able to explain it to someone who maybe doesn't know much about real estate. And I can give them a pretty good idea to the point where they can feel confident going out to invest. And then as well, I did a lot of promoting for them. So I sold tickets to different events that we have across the country. And that was kind of my main focus. But yeah.
Interesting. And so with that, then take us back for a second, right? Because I know that, again, having, seen your bio and seen what you've been up to and kind of looking a little deeper into that stuff, take us back for a moment. And I know this might be a little bit difficult to remember all this stuff because I look at my son, he's only 8. But take us back to when you were 9.
Mm-hmm.
You had $500 in your pocket. I think my first question on that is, how the hell did you get $500 in your pocket at 9 years old?
Yeah, so it was just saving up my birthday and Christmas money, I've always loved saving my money and just having the money and not spending it. So I just saved up my birthday and Christmas money over the years and had $500.
Go figure, man. Okay, cool. I mean, it's funny because like back in the day, we used to set up lemonade stands, or some people would deliver newspapers, others sold ice creams and popsicles. But you obviously were wise enough to save the money and put it aside, and then you went a totally different route. And it sounds like, you started taking advantage of today's technology, right? You started selling items on Kijiji, started selling items on Facebook. So what made you start to do the online sale? And again, I listen, I asked that because at my age, and again, I want to preface here, I'm not very old, but I'm older than you. I got 20 years on you. And so at my age, we didn't have the ability to look at the Kijijis and the Facebooks. We didn't grow up with that stuff. So it wasn't commonplace for us. I look at you, and then you've got, say 10 years on my son. I look at him, and he's going to grow up in that world. You've obviously grown up in that world. But what made you start to do the online sales? Like, what was the first item you decided to start you sell?
So yeah, it started when my grandfather, like when I was 9, he asked for him to go to an auction in London, Ontario here.
What, like one where the guys are like going off? Like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And I went to an auction, and my grandfather, he's like,
Totally
Tyson, all good. But he said, Tyson, there's this vacuum here, and they're expensive, and they're like top of the line, and they're really good vacuums. And it was called Filter Queen Vacuum. I didn't really know what it was. I was like, okay, sure, I'll see what I can do. And so I ended up getting this vacuum for $100, and I sold it on Kijiji for $250. And right then it was like a click for me, where I was just motivated and driven by the fact that I could take something at one price and then sell it for more. And it just kind of took off from there to the point where I started going to auctions every Tuesday. Then spring came, went to garage sales every Saturday. I even bought a red wagon when I was like 11 years old, and I'd take it around my neighborhood, pick up furniture that people were throwing it out, and fix it up and sell it on Kijiji as well. Even in London, we have a Fanshawe College and Western University.
Yep.
And so what I would do is I'd go around to all the campuses end of May when the students are leaving, and they just throw out all their stuff or get rid of it. And then I'd keep it and hold on to it. And then when they move back in August, just sell it back to them.
Oh, come on. That's hilarious. Now tell me you're selling it back to the same kids that put it out at the side of the road.
Not exactly the same kids.
Party too hard out there, right? So that's hilarious, man. So, I mean, well, hilarious. That's brilliant. I love it. So you were going around, literally going to auctions, going to garage sales. How did you know what you were buying? I mean, were you doing any pre-research on any of that stuff? How did you know what you were picking up, and then that you were going to make like you were going to be able to mark it up and sell it? I mean, did you sit on anything? Have you got inventory left over in the basement, piling up in mom's garage or anything like that?
So, yeah, what I did is most of the time I didn't know until I actually had bought and sold the item before. But like to start it, I didn't know. And so what I would do is, I'd go to a garage sale. And if I saw something that was interest of me, I'd ask how much they want and say they said $10. Well, then I'd go on Kijiji and eBay and look in the sold items, and I'd look for what they go for. And then
I'd say, there on the driveway.
Right there in the driveway.
Oh
yeah.
God, gotta love it. We do not have access to all this stuff. Sorry, keep going. Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's pretty much how I did it when I didn't know what something was worth. And then eventually I found a couple things that sold really well and kind of went with those.
Interesting, man. You know what? It's having, again, the thought process, the fortitude to go out there and really just find this stuff, gather it, and then go ahead and actually list it. And so seriously, did you sit, or are you sitting on inventory stuff that you picked up once and you never ended up flipping?
So no, I pretty much got rid of everything that I've picked up. However, in April, from the company that I work for, I had got 600 Dragon banks. And what they do is it's like a piggy bank that connects to an app, and it teaches kids.
Oh, my son was talking about that the other day. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, maybe. Did you bring that up the other day?
It's probably, yeah. In Niagara Falls, I think I did.
So it might have been my wife that brought it up to me. Maybe she was saying that Tyson brought it up. Okay, got it. So sorry, keep going. You bought those, yeah?
And I haven't really done anything with them, but I have them all sitting in my room. Right now, they're from like the floor to the ceiling, and all I have is just a bed and a little walkway in my room. Yeah, and I still have them, 600 Dragon banks.
You still have them?
Yeah.
Oh, they wouldn't sell?
I haven't really tried or done anything with them.
Why?
Very good question. All summer I went traveling. I did travel for like 12 weeks, the entire summer, and even into September. And then I started working September, October with this new company, and then doing different speaking opportunities. June, I was working on getting my license and graduating and finishing school. So I just haven't really put much focus into it, and it's not really a bother to me. I feel like I have 600 friends in my room all the time.
I don't know if I'd want that many people in my bedroom, but no. Okay, I got it. So then with that, you and pardon me, most of the sales or all of the sales happen through Kijiji.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And Facebook.
So you were using the Facebook Marketplace.
Correct. Marketplace wasn't out at the time when I started.
I was going to say.
It was more individual groups and stuff like that.
Okay, got it. And so are you using Marketplace now?
Yes, definitely.
And are you still focused on doing this stuff? Like, are you still picking stuff up and going to auctions, go to garage sales, pricing stuff out and doing that flipping?
Yeah. So I stopped going to auctions a couple of years ago. And the reason was because it started to get harder to buy good deals, because there was a 13% tax and then a 15% buyer's fee. So anything you got, you'd have to pay an extra 28% on it. But still the garage sales and stuff like that. However, I haven't been as big into the buying and selling just because I've been more focused on real estate investing and the income properties and things like that.
I got you. Okay. So just before switching gears into that, then you were in a Kijiji commercial. Yeah. And was this because bottom line, was this because you were making like a bunch of money on their platform? How did that whole thing come about?
So yeah, CBC News in January did an article on me.
And okay. How did CBC News then get, like, where did they come to you? And sorry, I apologize. I totally cut you off there. But CBC, I'm sure you were going to take me into how Kijiji came about. Am I correct there? So where did CBC come from then? Yeah,
so CBC News was the first thing. And so what happened was there was a girl in my city running an event. And I asked her and I messaged her and I said, hey, here's my story. This is what I've done. I love entrepreneurship and I'd like to learn more and meet other people my age. Will there be other people my age? And she just kind of went crazy and was like, no way, Tyson. I got to get you in my office so I can do a Facebook Live video with you. And so I ended up doing that. And then a CBC News reporter that she had as a friend on Facebook had saw that and reached out to me. And then it kind of went on from there. And then, that's how as well the TV show came along, and Global News Toronto, and a bunch of different, radio stations. But Kijiji specifically, someone that works for the company, their marketing agency, had saw the article and reached out to me via Instagram, and had asked me, if they could get in contact with me. So we had a bunch of meetings. It took about 4 months from the first contact to the point where we started filming. Lots of meetings over the phone with, their company and stuff like that. But that's kind of how Kijiji worked.
So for everybody listening, it's important that we pick up on that for a moment, because when we talk about building MindShare out there, and I tell you guys on a regular basis, we've got to use a cross-channel approach. We cannot focus everything we do on one channel, be it email, be it paper, be it phone calls, be it Facebooks, be it whatever's. It's got to be a multi-channel approach. And what Tyson was just explaining to us here was that he was going out there and doing stuff in live, real person, okay? Walking around, buying stuff, meeting with people. He then had essentially a phone conversation with somebody he knows who told him he's got to come in and do this recording. And so now we've gone from the in-person to the phone call to then going back to in-person to then getting online through video, and through the video and through the articles, through the print and all the connections there. Yeah. This is where other people heard of you and where all of these other media outlets started connecting with you. So again, and am I correct on that, Tyson?
Yeah, and another thing too is, of course it is a bit of luck, but at the end of the day, it's creating my own luck and my own opportunities. If I'd never reached out to that girl in the first place and grasped onto that opportunity and said, yeah, I'll film a Facebook Live with you. If I'd never said, yeah, I'll do this CBC News article with you. Like if I've never created those opportunities to receive that luck, then it wouldn't have happened.
Right. And that opportunity, just to clarify, that opportunity is what you started on that through calling somebody.
Yeah.
And somebody you knew.
Someone I didn't even know.
Somebody you didn't know, but you picked up the phone and called them.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. You see? And so again, everybody listening, that's important to pick up on, because the entire thing here started from the fact that he was working hard, grinding, putting his head down and doing the things he wanted to do. And then he picked up the phone, grinded even harder, and actually spoke to an individual. And all of a sudden the dominoes started to fall, and fall in a good way they did.
Yeah.
Right. And that's really what happened. So I want everybody to pick up on that, because again, he was building his own mind share through really putting his head down and doing it. From there, though, it started to become, what was that waterfall of events that happened? And part of that is that you've been relentless. You haven't stopped doing what you're doing.
And something I say as well is, people say, well, he back in the day, I didn't have technology, or, he was lucky to be able to do those things. But I'll be 100% honest with you. Those are just excuses to me. And if I was...
He's 17! I love it. Go ahead.
If I was here, though, 30, 40, 50 years ago, you can bet that I'd be posting ads in the London Free Press newspaper, and that I'd be knocking on doors saying, hey, do you want to buy this vacuum? That's definitely what I would do. I mean, yes, it is definitely a lot easier, and I am fortunate to have the social media nowadays, but back then I still would have done the exact same thing. And it's about looking at opportunities and going with them instead of just looking at excuses, because anyone can come up with excuses.
Well, but you're absolutely right, man. And I told you again, before we started, and I said to you when I invited you on the show, that was a big reason. I'm interested in your story. I think it's amazing. And it's funny because my wife is watching right now. And it's funny because as I was talking about the Dragon Vault, right? Is that what you called it? Dragon Vault?
Dragon Banks, yeah.
Dragon Bank. She's going, yes, that was me talking about it. She goes, I want 2 of them. She goes, sold. Anyways, we'll talk about that one later.
Okay.
So from there, so you're doing all this stuff. You've reached out. You've started to build some wealth for yourself. You're starting to move on from a lot of these sort of online sales. And you took it from there and started getting into real estate.
Yeah.
So tell me about that. Like, what was that? You started with $500 in your pocket. You begin to accumulate all this savings, and then, pardon me, I think you said this went on for about 6 years.
Yeah.
Right. So was it at that time that you realized you had enough to get into real estate, or what led you to go to that next level with your day-to-day business investments?
So yeah, it was the fact that I'd finally kind of reached my goal, which was to save up enough for a down payment on a property. And when I had done that, I saw more opportunity to make more money with real estate. And, I can go and sell a vacuum, make $100 and do that 1,000 times to make money, or I can, invest into real estate and focus on learning as much as I could. And, I'll die still not knowing everything about real estate. So that was kind of it for me, is just wanting to solely focus on real estate and learn as much about it as possible.
Okay, so I've got to go to my next question, which I got to imagine a lot of people are wondering. What about the banks? I mean, did you seek out financial help from family to get your first property? Or, did you do it all on your own? Some people can't even qualify now as fully grown adults. And here you are, don't think it's wrong, still as a kid, right? Doing this. How did you maneuver the financial part of that world? In fact, even if I might ask, like, if I can, how much was the first property you bought?
Yeah, so there's a couple different things that I've done. My first property was $113,000, and I had $25,000 saved up of my own money. And
$113,000, obviously in London.
Yeah, in London.
Okay. Yep.
And I bought it when the market was a lot lower. So like now it's worth over 240. That's just how the market has gone.
Well done.
But what I did is it goes into my parents' name until I'm 18 years old in trust for me. But most recently, what we've been doing is kind of changing that so it's even easier when I'm 18. And what we did is opened up a corporation called T. George Holdings, because my name is Tyson George.
Yep.
And then through the lawyer and with the lawyer's help, moving the properties into that corporation. So that way when I'm 18, I can say my parents can step down from owning the company and I can take over and it'll have my properties in it.
So why did you do that as a okay, pardon me. I understand why you do that as a corporation based on what you just explained. Once you become 18, do you want to leave these in the corporation? Do you want to put them back in personal? And then based on what you know, why would you choose one over the other? And how would you advise people to make that decision? So if somebody wanted to get started today and they decided, hey, should I open up a corporation? It sounds like maybe I should, or should I do this personally? What do you say to that?
So it kind of depends on your end goal. So for me, like a goal of mine is to own 100 units by age 25. And as like banks, generally, they don't allow you to have more than 5 mortgages or after 5 mortgages, they kind of try and cut you off and they're more cautious about it. But by moving it into a corporation, well, then they more focus on the income of the property and they look at it differently and not necessarily just your income, but the income of the property. Where not in a corporation, just in your name, it's solely based on your income and very little of the income of the property. So it's just a lot easier to be able to accumulate a lot more. So kind of what I would say to people is, if you just want to own a few investment properties, sure, why not put them in your name? But if you're looking at moving into even bigger and owning hundreds or dozens of them, well, then it's probably a better idea to put them in a corporation.
Now, are you ever going to be able to pull those out and put those back in your own name at some point, or you don't even want to? You just want
I probably don't want to be honest. No.
Just keep growing.
And the only crappy part for me was I had to pay land transfer tax twice by doing that.
Because it's a corporation.
Yeah. For moving it, like from when I bought the property and then moving it, selling it to the corporation, I guess. Yeah.
Right. But now when you go and buy the next property, you're going to be taking the equity from, say, property 1. Mind you, you're on 3 now at this point. So let's say from property 1, 2, and 3 to go buy properties 4, 5, and 6. And all of that is under the idea of, I'm sorry, what did you call it? Yeah, the corporation, whatever you call it there. Yeah. But all that is going to be under the property of the corporation. That's not going through any personal.
No, then that's kind of the idea. And then as the company starts making more money as well, it'll be a lot easier. Like to start even now, my parents, they had to be personally reliable for the corporation because it doesn't have much in it. It had like $50,000, $60,000 just from refinancing properties. But that's not enough to cover. So, but as the company starts making more money, it'll as well be a lot easier to put more properties in there as well.
Right. And then so everything just remains in there and the company continues to amass essentially just bankroll. You're starting to make money on it. Leave everything in there. Use it as, obviously all your tax benefits and whatnot, and just keep building that business.
Exactly. Yeah.
So then, okay. So you didn't stop, like when you did your 1, and obviously I just alluded to the fact that you've got 3, but you didn't do just 1. You're currently sitting on those 3. Yeah. How did you go from 1 to 2 to 3? And again, this was, forgive me, prior to having the corporation. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Because it was once you got to the 3 that you went corporation.
Correct.
Right. So how did you do that? You went from 1 to 2 to 3. Was that again leveraging the equity? I mean, let's call it what it is. You didn't wait a very long time.
Mhm.
You know, it wasn't like you had a 5-10 year plan on each property to go buy the next one.
So every property was different. So for example, my first property was a down payment. My second property, like my own money, the down payment. My second property was leveraging my first, so pulling equity out of that to buy my second. And then my third one was very different. And this one was very unique. And what I did is I was able to get the property with none of my own money, and through the power of private lending. And so what I did, and I can even run the numbers with you, the property was $130,000. And generally what someone would have to do is they have to put down 20%, which is $26,000.
Right.
They have to put the lawyer fees, land transfer tax, and I figured 10 to 20,000 in renos. So that'd be like $50,000 of my own money. But instead what I did is I went to someone privately and I said, give me $150,000 for 3 months at 16% interest.
Oh, shit.
Yes. And so, they're like, oh, 16% interest.
Yeah,
great.
here's the money.
Yeah.
How much more do you want?
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's $2,000 a month in interest. But by running the numbers, like 16%, I could have gone way higher.
Right.
And just because the numbers work, and I'll explain how that works in a minute. So they gave me the $150,000, and at the end of the 3 months, I was to give them back $156,000. And so what I did is I took the $150,000, bought the townhouse for $130,000, and then after all the fees and renos, I used the whole $150,000.
Right.
And then what I did is we went to the bank and said, okay, I own this property free and clear. I own nothing on it, and I'd like to put a mortgage on it.
And they don't know about the private?
No, because it's private money.
Right.
And I'd like to put a mortgage on it, refinance it. And so the bank brought an appraiser in and said, okay, well, this property's all renovated, looking great. You're getting more money for rent. This property is worth $240,000. And then what they did, based off of recent sales as well. And then what they did is they said, we'll give you a mortgage of 80% of that. And that's kind of where that 20% almost down payment goes in. And that was $192,000 they gave me a mortgage of, which I took, paid back the private lenders $156,000, and then still walked away with $30-some thousand plus this fully renovated townhouse that now cash flows every month.
How did you take the money from the bank and go give it to the private? And I mean, you just again say to the bank, hey, I want like more equity out?
No, so because when the bank looks at it, I owe no money on it. Because I got private money, they don't see that private money, so it looks like I owe nothing on the property. So when I'm getting a mortgage on it, they give that $192,000 to me.
Right. Do what you want with it. It's in your account.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. Gotcha.
Because it's essentially a loan.
Interesting. Okay. So that was how that's how 1 became 2, became 3.
Correct.
And so now you're sitting on 3. Mm-hmm. You got 3 with $0 out of your own pocket. You've paid that off. So you own that free and clear now. Essentially. Mortgage.
So, yeah. Which my tenants are paying back.
Pardon me?
Which my tenants are paying back the mortgage. Right,
exactly. And you're paying, and I'm assuming that's cash positive for you.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So they're paying that back. You've got the tenants out there now. Are these just the fact that you are in London and you brought up the universities and everything else? Are these people that are in university town that are people going to school still, or no?
No, I try and stay away from students.
I got to figure there's more liability there, right?
Yes. So I have I have a couple in there who's in their 40s who, they lived in a 3-story walk up and they just wanted to upgrade to something a bit different. I have a single 40-year-old man who works for Via Rail, worked there his whole life. And so just good tenants who have good jobs, secure jobs, and that I wouldn't have to worry about when it comes to rent payment or them ruining the place.
Love it, man. This is awesome insight, buddy. So if there's more to share around numbers or the way you've put this together, because I think you just dropped the big nugget there around the private lender and then going to the bank and then paying all that stuff off. And obviously, again, it's got to be the right property, right? And that's always a big deal when it comes to investing, is figuring out the right property. So when I ask you this next question, and I am not asking you for any names in any way, so if there are people that are involved with you, helping you, don't, keep that to yourself, obviously, but are you using a realtor? And if you are, is it a realtor who's finding and putting the deals together, or are you doing all this, are you starting on realtor.ca and doing all this research yourself? And either way you slice it, How do you know when it's the right one?
So pretty much it's by doing all the research in the area and looking at what properties have gone for. But as far as the real estate goes, so my mom, she's a real estate agent.
Okay.
And she has never, she's never been big into the real estate game.
Right. I met your mom back in Niagara. That's absolutely. Yeah. Yes. I know that now.
And she's never been much into the investing side of it. But now she is, obviously, now that she sees me wanting to pursue a career in that. And so the only biggest thing about my mom being a realtor is that she got to make commission on it, and that it was easier for someone to do the offers and things like that, and to talk to the people. But a lot of it was my own research on realtor.ca, and even scrolling through Kijiji looking for private deals, talking to different people, and in terms of finding out whether it's a good deal or not, just really by looking at where I think the market's going to go in terms of the trends on how much it's gone up over the years, and kind of reading different articles and the projections for real estate, and then looking at the condition of the property, and even saying to myself, if I'm able to renovate this place and up the rent, will get appraised for enough that I'm able to pay back the private lender, for example. So just a lot of really my own research, but most of it has been conversations with other people. Like, I go to tons of real estate events. I'm always asking hundreds and hundreds of questions, even to my friends' parents.
What kind of questions are you asking? Like, when you're talking to people? and I know it's a loaded question when I say that, but here's why I bring that up is there's a lot of folks that are going to be out there that are going, okay, got it. So far, because everything you've said is incredibly logical. I don't want to say it's incredibly easy, because you still got to have the nerve to do it. You've got to have the know-how and everything, the wherewithal. That said, though, you're going and you're educating yourself. You're doing something to learn stuff.
Yeah.
So if people want it to be, because again, a lot of our listeners, a lot of our audience is either in the real estate, the mortgage, the loan officer industries, the real estate industry, they're all together a lot. Mm-hmm. And again, there's some people that just go out there and grind every single day and are not investing in real estate necessarily. That being said, you're going out and asking questions when you're with people. I imagine there's a lot of people that want to invest but probably don't. What questions can they be asking?
So there's so many different things, and it is kind of a loaded question, but kind of what I would say in terms of questions that you can ask. So for me personally, like the real estate events, for example, at these real estate events, there'd be lots of other people who are interested, obviously, in investing into real estate. And a lot of them have already done it themselves. So by going up to them and saying, how did you do it? What tricks or tips do you have for me? Or how do you find your tenants? And just asking them those kind of questions. Or even my friends' parents, hey, do you guys own any investments in real estate? Or
You're constantly just asking questions around this part of the world.
And when I was 11, I could get away with asking them even more personal questions, or hydro and stuff.
So were you coached on any of this? Or did you have a mentor that guided you to start getting into this? Or was this just, again, that whole thing of, I'm making money here, hustling online, I can go and take this and do even bigger and better with real estate?
Mm-hmm. So at the beginning, not really. I mean, I had my grandfather as a mentor when it came to the buying and selling. When it came to the real estate, it was kind of all over the place. My dad, he knew a bit about it as well. So as watching YouTube videos together and kind of piecing everything together. And then even more now, because like my mom, like I said, she's gotten more into the real estate investing side of things after seeing me have kind of a drive motivation to pursue it. Even her and her partner, they run a team here in London, and they've even helped me kind of given me different ideas on how I can expand my mind and look for more opportunities when it comes to real estate, such as flyering different areas that I have an interest in. So
actually getting out there to market the fact that you want to buy some property.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've started to do that?
Yeah. Me and a friend of mine, we actually 2 days ago, we were at Tim Hortons making a flyer to go give out to a bunch of neighborhoods.
And literally, so what's your intention with that then? You're going to go knock on the doors? You're going to go put it in mailboxes? What's the idea?
We haven't decided yet. I mean, it'll depend on the neighborhood for us. So if there's a neighborhood that we're really hungry that we want to get involved in, then it'll probably be door knocking. Hey, are you looking selling your house in the next 6 months to a year or whatever? But other than that, it'll just be flyers, but not just putting them in the mailbox, but, like sticking them in the door or something, or taping them to the door, like whatever, to make sure that they'll see it. And
Did
then,
everybody hear that this guy is 17 years old? And how about you guys that have seen me talk to you guys, whether through any of the content that I put out there to the world? And I tell you that 96% of people do not door knock.
yeah,
99.9% of people that do say they see business out of it. Then there's that whole thing that I bring up where we talk about a lot, and I always put up this thing in some of my presentations where old people don't read email and millennials don't like paper.
yeah.
Mr. Millennial, what would you say to that right there?
So I'd say it depends on who your target audience is. If you are trying to get, say, real estate in an elderly subdivision, then you know what, it's probably better to knock on doors or do the whole face-to-face interaction. But if you're trying to reach millennials, then you know what, like posting ads on Instagram and Facebook if you want to get their attention. So it kind of depends on who your target audience is.
But you being a millennial, if I wanted to target you, I could still use paper and phone calls because you seem to be using that method as well. And that seems like it could possibly work with you.
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing. Everybody hear that? You know, for all the misconceptions that everybody has out there around who's watching and listening to marketing and paying attention to all your stuff out there, you got to take it right there. He's telling you, he's 17 years old. He's telling you right now that when you use these different methods, they work. Again, talking about building MindShare, buddy, I love what you just brought up there. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to go out and fly your neighborhoods. You're going to go door knock. Are you building a database? Are you putting people in there? So if I'm like, hey, yeah, thanks for coming by. I'm not interested in doing anything right now, but feel free to get back in touch with me at some point. What do you do with that?
So what it'll be me, you know, taking notes, writing down their information, stuff like that, and then following up, calling them, saying, hey, you know, this is Tyson. I was at your door talking to you not too long ago. Just wondering if you get any thought about selling your house and maybe we could work something out, you know, like just following up from them and making sure that I stay on top of them because the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yeah. So look, you've achieved a ton in a very short amount of time based on what you've done and what you're doing. You mentioned, and I know I read that you mentioned that your goal was 100 properties, 100 units, call it whatever, by the age of 30. But a few moments ago, you just said by the age of 25. Now, based on what you're doing, it all does seem very possible. You've sped it up by 5 years. I think that is I love the tenacity on that. That plan that you've got, all of that, how do you go about that, right? So you've got the plan to do it. What is that plan? How do you continue to grow while leveraging the dollars that you've got? And again, we talked a little bit about that, but I'm curious to know because now we're taking a massive jump. Right. Mm-hmm. We're talking in a 8-year to kind of 12-year period. Yeah. In the next 8 to 12 years, you want to literally take your units and like multiply by 1,000% even more, call it, based on dollars and leveraging dollars that you've got and that you can get your hands on. How many properties do you plan to purchase in 2020? Like this upcoming year, in the next almost 365 days?
Yeah, so my goal is to have 5 units, but by the time I'm 18, so before I'm legally allowed to own any. But, you know, eventually the idea is I want to push away from single family homes. Right now they're great, but eventually what I want to get into is commercial. So buying 6-plexes, 12-plexes, apartment buildings. And there's even different ways through leveraging as well as, you know, things such as vendor take-backs. There's so many different opportunities and other ways to make things work. So if I wanted to buy, say, an apartment building, even if I don't have the full down payment, you know, you can get private investors to have shares in the properties to pay for the renos. You can get the person that you're buying it off of to hold the mortgage for until you renovate it and can get it refinanced and reappraised. There's so many different ways to be able to expand at kind of a faster rate. But for me, it was more, I got to start somewhere. And so, you know, just starting with a couple at a time, you know, I got the hang of this thing. And then kind of moving up from there. And it'll be definitely a lot easier as well when I am actually 18. I'm able to go out there myself and I'm able to sign papers myself and actually do the deals.
So again, when you go from 3 that you've had over 2 years, let's say, and you want to move into, say, 2 more by next year.
Yeah.
You've then got a fairly aggressive growth pattern that you're looking to accomplish in a short amount of time as the years begin to progress. So is all that money, all of it is coming through leveraging the properties, you've already got the equity there, and then speaking to your private lenders?
So yeah, private lenders as well as looking at different systems and way to do things, such as vendor tax and But yeah, and like right now, saying between age 15 and 18, only 5 properties, and then going from 18 to.
Oh, I wouldn't say only. I would take the word only out of that whole thing. Okay.
And then going from 18 to 25, 7 years, and getting 95 more doors. How do you do that? But really, what it comes down to is really one more property can say get me 12 doors, a 12-plex. And so it's a lot easier that way, getting in commercially to quickly get doors, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if I buy an apartment building with say 50 units, well, there's 50 units towards my goal.
Right. Okay, cool.
So, yeah.
And so are all of the properties you're doing sort of in and about, the geography where you're living?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's the best place to start, because that's what I know.
Yeah.
But even now I've been kind of looking at other areas such as Sarnia, Windsor, Chatham, Brantford, just kind of get a feel of what their markets are like, if they're undervalued or not, and what opportunities are out there.
Love it, guys. For everybody listening, for everything that you have heard today, for those of you who do invest, for those of you who have wanted to start investing, have I mentioned that he's only 17 years old? Tyson, you say that risk is the down payment on success. It's not about starting tomorrow. It's about starting today. And to all of my listeners, I ask you this: what the hell is stopping you?
Mm-hmm.
So just before we go, what advice do you have for everyone listening right now? If there's anything else you want to share about anything, please feel free to keep going for that. But what can people do to start right now? What advice might you throw at them? And again, what maybe have you wanted to share today that maybe we didn't cover off just yet that, again, you want to get across?
Yeah. So what I'd say is there's so many different opportunities out there, and keep your mind open. Never stop asking questions. So for example, I've looked at different things such as Airbnb, and now one of my properties is an Airbnb. And now I've even looked at owning Airbnbs without even owning a property. So by leasing someone's property and say giving them $1,200 to $1,500 a month, and then by putting their property on Airbnb with their permission and bringing in $2,500 to $3,000. So just looking at different opportunities, going to different events is a great way, watching different YouTube videos on how you can learn. And then as well, you have to be able to bite the bullet. Like, for example, my second property, I saw it at Tuesday night at like midnight. And I said to my mom, I want to go see this property tomorrow. She's like, no, we'll go see it on the weekend. I said, no, we have to go tomorrow. And so we went tomorrow and saw it at 5 p.m. on a Wednesday. And at 5:30, the agent called us and she said, there's been a bully offer, which means someone gave an offer before when they were supposed to do offers, and that they were going to look at it and go over it, and that they were doing offers at 6 p.m. So I had literally a half hour to figure out where I was going to come up with the money, whether or not I wanted to buy the property, and what I wanted to do. And so 15 minutes later at 5:45, she called us again, and she said, there's 10 other offers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so now I was like,
was she being for real?
She was serious.
Okay.
Yeah. And because there was tons of bookings, because it was a reasonably priced place. And so what I did is I found the money quickly through private money.
Okay, I was going to ask you, and forgive me, I don't mean to pry on this public forum right here, but that's exactly what you did. Like you just said, you got to figure out where to come up with the money.
Yeah.
So you went to a private and you said, hey, I need X amount of dollars. I need it like now.
And the reason was because at the time I wasn't expecting to buy a property, but when it was too good of an opportunity to miss. I mean, right. Generally I'd want to, see if I can get what I can get pre-approved for as far as mortgages go, or see how my company's doing and things like that. But at this time, this is a property I need and I didn't want to miss on. So I found private money, and I ended up going $35,000 over asking with no conditions. And what's funny is I wasn't the highest offer. Someone went $40,000 over asking, but they had a condition.
But they had a condition.
Yeah.
And had you seen the property yet, or no? You just sort of put it down.
I saw it 45 minutes before I bought it.
Love it. Eh? Love it, buddy.
So everything was very quick. And so, sometimes you have to just be able to buy the bullet. And for the people sitting there who are like, wow, what if the real estate market goes down? Or
you get that all the time.
Yes. Oh, I do. I hear it all the time. And kind of what I say to that is, if you look at the trend over the last 100 years, we've had market crashes. Look at 2008. We've had all these ups and downs. But generally, it's going up.
Yep.
And you know what? I'll be in all honest with you. I hope we have another market crash in terms of real estate going down, because that's when I'll go and I'll buy properties.
Yeah.
So just like not being afraid and actually taking the risk and biting the bullet. And like I said, risk is the down payment to success. And you have to be willing to take risks. And if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. But it's not that easy. And you have to be willing to bite the bullet. So that's kind of what I'd say to people. And, always be looking for different opportunities, such as vendor takebacks. If one bank says no to you and denies your mortgage, sometimes it takes 3 or 4 banks. Sometimes it takes going to a credit union and getting financing through them. There's so many different opportunities to buy a property. So don't be discouraged if one person says no to you, that you can't get the financing or the lending for it. Go to 3, 4, 5, 6 different banks. Like even this year, we've gone through probably 6 different mortgage brokers, and I was able to get every single property I wanted because of that. And we've been denied lots. I even got denied a month ago by moving the properties into corporation. And I said, okay, well, I'll just go off to the next person. And now I'm giving my money to that person for being able to do it. So just not being discouraged by the no. And even like I found out Airbnb was a huge risk for me. What if I get a party in there and students trash the place? There's all these what ifs. But it's about, taking that risk. And I'm glad I did, because I'm making now $1,200 a month in cash flow instead of $200-$300 a month. So it's all about trying different things, talking to different people, and at the end of the day, taking risks. So that's kind of what I would say to people.
I love it, buddy. And this is full-time work for you now.
So it's always just kind of been a hobby, but right now, yes, real estate is kind of my full-time thing and learning as much as I can. And if you have kids and you want to get them to be more financially educated, a great thing that my parents did for me over the years is I always knew what their debts were. I always knew how much we paid in hydro. I knew what their taxes were every year and their property tax. And by me learning that at a young age and by saying, hey, Mom, what's your phone bill this month? I'm able to kind of gain an understanding of how that all works. And by introducing to your kids to that early on is definitely a good thing to do, and to kind of get their mindset good and to set them up for the future.
So this wasn't so much about being the math whiz. This was literally having, again, the ability or the desire to take risk, but more about even asking questions and learning from people that are ahead of you and going, hey, tell me more. This is what I will refer back to as street learning rather than school system learning. It's real life education that you're getting from people that are, again, walking it, talking it, right? Just like we're getting from you today.
And that's exactly it, for sure.
Very cool, buddy. This has been absolutely awesome. Tyson, thank you, as I knew it would be. Where can people go to connect and learn more about you, from you, any of that stuff? Is there somewhere people can go? I know you've got a YouTube channel coming.
Yes.
Talk about that. What else have you got? Where can people go? Tell us about the YouTube if you want to. I mean, any of that stuff, how can people find you?
So yeah, in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be starting up a YouTube channel and making videos. And that'll be kind of just like the nitty gritty things of how I do things. So for example, how all the process of Airbnb works, and, the different things that are involved in it. And, some of the problems that I've had with Airbnb, or even going into more in depth with vendor takebacks and buying properties different ways. So that's kind of what I plan on doing in the next couple of weeks. But right now you can reach out to me on Facebook. My name is Tyson George, or even Instagram, TYSN.7 is another way as well. But yeah, and if you ever have any questions, or even your kids or whatever, I'm available.
Buddy, I know certain people watching right now are definitely going to be taking you up on that. I can see the comments coming through. Thank you. Thank you again very, very much for your time today, for the education, for the insight. I am absolutely pumped for what you have done so far and where you are going. I'm excited to watch this ride. So good on you, buddy. Seriously, man, it's awesome.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely. You're either listening to this on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify. Or maybe you went to industrysyndicate.com. Maybe you downloaded our free Industry Syndicate podcast app. Or maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. Wherever you like to consume your content, please rate, review, and subscribe. And if you haven't yet, Connect with me on Facebook at MindShare 101 and on Instagram at David Greenspan 101. This has been another episode of the MindShare podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening.